Cool. Okay, so I'm playing with the word functional in functional programmer, as in like functioning with your body and your hands and wrists and whatever else. But actually, it's not only about programmers. It's about whoever is working in the same style, more or less, as programmers work. So this is a big disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, so whatever I say, please don't just do whatever I say blindly. Listen to people that know what they're talking about, which is not me. This is why I'm doing this talk. I started having some problems with my wrists, and I feel like I'm not the only one, and I feel like actually most of us are going to encounter problems like that, and we only have one body to do whatever we love to do, and doing software is not only about thinking, it's also about typing some stuff on the keyboard and using the mouse and whatever else. So please take care of this stuff, because like you are doing cool stuff and I want you to be doing cool stuff for the foreseeable future, especially when I'm around you, so take care of that. What is RSI, or repetitive strain injury? Is whatever sort of feeling you see on that list, so a burning sensation, numbness, a tingling sensation, pins and needles, pain, loss of motor function, especially localized to the wrists and hands. But not only, like there are other places in the body. It's super important, again, to catch this kind of stuff as early as possible. And I think as programmers, but like as human beings, we tend to like feel we are invincible, and like that stuff that is happening to other people is never going to happen to us. So like, don't do it. You have like more or less our biology is the same, so don't really feel invincible. And also there's some sort of denial. So like you start feeling some pain in one hand, and it's like it's going away. There's no problems there. So that's another thing we should avoid. Whenever you start having some problems, like please, again, talk with experts, not with me. And also awareness. I mean, the point is most of the things we do them without thinking about it, and that can cause problems, especially when it comes to posture, because our body tends to adapt, and there's actually a mechanism in which your body, you start with a bad position at the beginning, it feels uncomfortable, but then your body adapts. So like, now I can be in this super bad position for longer until bigger problems appear. I have this book, so I will donate it to Lunar. It's a really awesome read. What they say is for every week you work through pain, you have to add 1 month to the time you need to heal. And this is actually, I think it's a big thing to keep into consideration, especially because like whenever the problem appears, then treatment is going to cost you money, because you need to, go to therapists, doctors, whatever. It's going to cost you happiness, because I can totally assure you that working with pain is not the same as working with like a complete, like in the flow and like in a smooth way. And also it's going to cost you focus, because like imagine while working, every time you move your fingers, it's going to cause you pain, so you can't really write code, but you should. It's like a mess. So like it's going to cost you a lot of resources in the end. A bit of theory. A big problem here is that there's not much hard data. So like experienced by people like in the medical community, there's not really like a good knowledge about it, I would say. And mostly we treat symptoms. So like you have some pain in your hand, like let's take some painkillers and forget about the pain, right? Until the pain becomes so strong that you can't use the painkillers anymore, and it's actually so critical that you really need to stop working completely, or stuff like that, which is not what we want probably. And also there's a lot of carpal tunnel focus. So like doctors sometimes tend to say, okay, let's just operate the thing and let's solve the problem right away. It doesn't really work, because like as we're going to see, RSI is like a sort of a systemic problem. So like you just solve the wrist, then the problem is going to move somewhere else. And just to explain what's the word about, so like you stay in the same position for years, you do millions of repetitions, and that happens over time, and that's like the repetitive strain part. and after that you get into some injuries. Again, to the hands, wrists, but like that spreads. I want you to focus on that definition, because that is exactly what we do when we're typing. So like, to some extent, typing will always lead us towards that problem. This is like, here I just want to focus on the big picture. So as you see, there's a lot of arrows going down. That is a feedback, and it's really bad, because like, it's one of those things, you start in a bad way that like feeds back, and like you keep doing the wrong things, and the problem never goes away and actually gets worse. I want to focus on the top left part. Let's start from the top. So like, some people have already some posture problems. I would speculate most people, like 90-ish%. And also there's like that problem with the workstation. And for example, this is one problem with it. So when we tend to overreach with the hands and the arms, then we are loading the shoulders much more than just keeping the arms vertical. And again, be aware of this kind of stuff, because like, I can't show you all of the possible images of all of the possible problems. It's you that need to feel their body and understand what's going on. So don't do this. Another one, a picture on the left, you are writing on the keyboard, and like, since the keyboard is like less wide than your shoulders, you tend to put your wrists together. So then you tend to rotate them outwards, and this cause a lot of tension on the wrists. And on the right image, you're going to see that sometimes, since we're working a lot, we tend to put our arms on the desk, and then we tend to dorsiflex the wrists, and that's another point where we cause some problems to the wrists. But again, like, let's go back to this. The point is, like, you stay in the same position for a long time, and then like there's some poor breathing and blood flow problems, and then what happens is you get weak, and you tend to get in a forward sort of posture, which is like something like this. And I guess you can kind of recognize, if not yourself because you don't see yourself, other people in the office being in that position. That's super bad. And that's super bad, we're going to see why. So, but just notice that you have your neck and like you're kind of compressing yourself on the front. So again, this is back to where we were, and so we are pressing on the thorax, and we start having nerve and blood flow problems, because in our body, from the spine, we have 3 nerves and 1 artery going from the spine to the fingers. And when you start like being in that sort of position, you pinch them. So you pinch 3 nerves and 1 artery, which is like most of the stuff, the important stuff that goes to your hands, right? And let's go to the top right now. So the point is, like, since you're compressing the artery, you don't have anymore the right blood circulation there, so you get fatigued because you stay in the same position, and your body is unable to wash away the byproducts of that fatigue. So you get inflamed pretty much. And then what happens is you start having muscle spasms, which is when you have your muscles tight and you can't relax them. And I see already most people like doing stuff like this with their necks, and that's like one thing that happens. Again, like that sort of posture, then you start having that sort of discomfort. And of course, this causes you to be more in this position, which is causing more and blah 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 feedback, and this gets worse and worse. And also, I want you to see that so I mentioned the point with the artery being pinched. Also, the nerves get in the same position. That's called trigger point. And again, like when you feel that when you don't feel your hands, or you feel like some sort of pins and needle sensation, that's because the nerves are starting to have some problems. And the nerves actually also control the motor thingies that you have in your fingers and stuff. So like, it's better to catch this problem early when you have some discomfort there. Again, like back to the image, let's go bottom left. And again, I want to focus on like a natural body contortions, which is like, what is this? I'm not in the circus, but actually imagine when you're doing command Alt, Shift, blah blah blah, that thing is actually over time going to cause you problems, because like those, I don't think cavemen were doing those sort of things. And contact pressure, this is a big one, and it's like a lot of people are into rests, like wrist rests or arm rests, for example, on the chair or on the desk or on the keyboard, and that's a big problem because, like, again, one of the input to this feedback loop is bad circulation. So if you start putting your arms or wrists or whatever like on a surface, you limit the circulation again. So like you feed the feedback loop. And also it's so super important to focus on the last point, which is using small muscles with the ones for our fingers. And that's a problem especially for Vim users like me, where like we tend to keep our hands super like in the same position and then like move just the fingers. And of course the small muscles are much more fatigable than bigger ones. Okay, cool. And back to this, let's go bottom right. And you know, being in a sedentary sort of lifestyle, it's again creating problems because the circulation problems, you're not helping yourself if you're not doing anything besides working. Endurance, so like having your muscles being able to sustain your posture the entire day is going to help you not to get into like being on the desk in super bad positions and stuff like that. Okay, so I want to we kind of spent some time on the problem, and I want to be optimistic and like give you some hope and some solutions. There's like the problem here is, again, there's not much hard data, and but people are like on Reddit. You go to Reddit and they are like, yeah, do that like a robot, you know, arms like 90%, 90 degrees, legs also, blah blah blah, but doesn't really help. So again, we need something holistic to solve the problem, like as a systemic problem, and not like solving specific things, because otherwise we would just move the problem somewhere else. So, you know, when your mom or your grandma, whatever, is saying like those super boring things, take breaks, eat well, sleep well, don't drink too much coffee, it turns out that stuff kind of makes sense, even if we tend not to do those kind of things. So it's not a silver bullet, but this is probably what we should be doing. I guess I don't really have to cover it too much. One thing I would like to focus on is like the ergonomic workplace. Again, there's a lot of advices, but we should really think about what's best for each of us. It's like, it doesn't really, some people have different natural positions, so we should actually think about it and again be aware of what's going on and finding our best. Like you can get massages to remove those trigger points and those muscle spasms, and also taking breaks is super important. I'm going to cite another book later on, and that book like actually explains how just being in the same position is like the worst thing you could do, and it's not only about sitting, it's also about standing. So like going from sitting to just standing all day, it's another bad thing to do, especially if you have a bad posture, because like when you're sitting you have less weight on your body. If you're standing, you really need a good posture. And warm up, they like in the book they talk about like warming up, like if athletes are warming up before doing their run, when shouldn't we warm up our, you know, whatever, fingers, whatever we use to type, nose, I don't know. Some specific tips. This is, you're not really going to like it, especially if you're a Vim user. Since like using Vim or stuff like that means using small muscles, they say just, you know, use less fingers, and so you're obliged to move you're obliged to use the bigger muscles you have. Another one is, and I'm actually doing it with your mouse, like I put it to like the slowest speed possible and actually trying to use instead of the wrist. Instead of the wrist, I'm actually using the arm. Do not reach out, I already talked about it. Keeping straight wrists, not like doing any dorsiflexion or ulnar deviation and stuff like that. Keeping your forearms horizontal. Again, like you shouldn't have your arms on the desk while you're working, you should have them suspended. And if you need a break, take a break. Just don't overwork your body. The monitor at the right reading distance, 8th, and without any glares. Again, I don't really want to go specific into recommendations, because like here is about, again, like keeping your body relaxed and everything. Also the font size helps. Like if you have a small font, then you would try to go towards the monitor. The knees, they say, should be at 90 degrees while your feet are on the ground. Again, do not use rests. Just keep your arms horizontal, suspended. Arms close to the body so you don't overreach. And they say, against all of the recommendations I've read, to keep the angle of the arm a bit more than 90 degrees. And the last point is super important. Like, just don't stay in the same position for the entire time, especially if that position is a bad one. Like, take breaks, start doing yoga, like the flying, whatever. Do whatever you can. Don't just stay in the same position. And of course, like some devices can help you with that, but it's mostly those boring advices from our mothers to do the right things. Whatever address whatever of these problems, and whatever more we can do about it, the better. Like, there's no like checklist. So in the last part, I want to talk about myself. Maybe not all of you know what I'm like, my crazy experiments, how they are going and everything. But first I want to show you something. So like, I'm not surprised I have problems right now, because like, take a look at my position. I have like the back, like I'm like over, like for super forward position with my head. I have my arms like super overreaching. The monitor is like super low. Like everything bad that probably was talking about in this talk is like there. And I guess you can look around in that picture, and like there's a lot of other things we shouldn't probably be doing. People like on the chair, like if it was a bed, or like using rests on, like resting on the table or on the chair rests, like arms like super wide with the wrists like in this position. I could go on, and actually I started walking around in the office lately, and like being aware of this stuff is like, I really feel bad. I don't know, like I would like to stop people and say, oh, please don't change position, but I don't know. Maybe I would interrupt people a bit. Again, like the problem with this is like sometimes you improve something and you make something worse, because for example, I started using the Dvorak layout, which is awesome. You move your hands much less, so you use your fingers more, which, you know, on one thing is good, on the other one is bad. So again, there's no perfect way to solve this problem. It's just that we are not designed to do this kind of stuff. So limiting it, taking breaks, being dynamic really works. I started using an Ergodox. Right now, actually, I started using an Ergodox, and I taped some stuff on the table, so I have like the two halves like tilted, which helps, because like your hand, if you think about it, you're more comfortable keeping the wrist vertical than horizontal, especially for a long amount of time. I have this, I don't know if like, I know we're going to have some challenges later, so like keep that in mind. I think I have the RPM PM reader, so we can actually see who's better at this. But this is actually an awesome tool to strengthen your wrists and forearms, which again helps, because like then you are not fatigued so easily, and you don't put yourself in a bad position. Vertical mouse, again, keeping your wrist vertical is easier, and it's actually more natural, so maybe an improvement, but again, like it would be probably best to switch between something like this, trackball, trackpad, and like just not to stay in the same position for the entire time. I have this. So like, have you ever seen those like one-man band people, like, you know, playing everything? You know, we can do that with computers too. So I have, like, I still have to set it up again because the first one I got was broken, but I have Command Alt, Control Alt and Command on the pedals. So you can actually do Vim stuff without those kind of contortions. And you know, taking breaks is like, at least for me, it's impossible. I need somebody to come and slap me or do something, like make me unable to work. I'm using this app, it's free. It's like kind of blocks you from going on somehow, so that works. This is a bit hippie, but I feel like we could, like we are all day hit by notifications and people, and I have to answer that email, I have to do whatever. I feel like some meditation could really help us, and this is a super awesome app. The first few days are free. Just don't take my word for granted. I meditated for a long time. Sometimes I have some breaks, but it helps a lot. But you know, just try it and see how it works. It's a guided meditation thingy, so you just have to follow whatever they tell you. Well, like the chair is another important thing. Again, there's no perfect chair, but this kind of helps a bit not being in the same position, because you tend to be dynamic and like change you know, it's kind of encouraging you to not be in the same position for the entire time. Just a couple of references. I have this book. I will give it to Lunar. I think it's perfect if you want to understand the problem better, and from somebody who knows, not from me. And this is another awesome one. She has a lot of she has an awesome blog, it seems, and also a lot of books. This is the book where she just doesn't explain the science too much, so it's a short one, but it gives you a lot of advices on how to be more healthy and, like, you know, preserve your body more. I just want to close with this. We're just given one body, and we need to take care of that because we don't have a replacement until for the next few years, I guess. So keep your body healthy, and please, you know, enable yourself to be doing awesome stuff for as much as you can.